Hello everyone, Sunlook2 and welcome to another type of video, this time on Minecraft Community Creations. And this is going to be pretty much similar to my Rift snapshot related video, where I do sort of different stuff besides my typical uploads. But yeah, so I thought I'd go over things like Modloaders, as well as certain others, like command block creations, adventure maps, and certain other stuff. Sort of briefly, I'm not going to do too much on that, but I'm going to also, I guess, cover Modloaders, since there is a lot more that I've come across over the years. So yeah, obviously as far back, I'm assuming maybe betas, maybe alpha, we've had adventure maps obviously, which have done quite a lot of interesting things over the years. Whether it be just using blocks to create really interesting themed places, to certain things like droppers, to using commands in really interesting ways, to just a ton of possibilities that people would not expect, from interesting trickery of teleportation, to certain illusions, to then also stuff that's really interesting in terms of just taking you on a journey somewhere, to then also having it where you have different types of CTM maps, where you've got stuff, obviously you build a monument based on if you do, say, I don't know, I guess if I went with something like diversity, for example, you would have, obviously, you do an adventure path, you do a puzzle path, you do a dropper path, you do an escape room path, possibly, stuff like that. So obviously they've evolved in many interesting ways. I don't remember how far back, but yeah, it has been quite interesting approaching those over the years. You've got Modloaders, obviously, like Risugami's Modloader, obviously been around since beta, I'm pretty sure, according to the sort of sources I've been able to find. It sort of ended in 1.6.2. And obviously supported quite a lot of interesting mods for the time, even also alongside Forge, supporting mods like Red Power, a few others, and that by the creator of the Modloader themselves. You've got Recipe Book, which is also a notable one. So quite a lot of interesting stuff came out of this. It is obviously not as relevant anymore, but it was quite interesting, as I'm pretty sure the start of Modloaders appearing, besides Forge and the other later ones that obviously have come up since. But yeah, a lot of interesting mods and potential definitely came out of this for the time it was around. Obviously from early 2010 and then ended in 1.6.2, which I think was about 2013, 2014-ish. So, quite a while, honestly. You've got Forge, obviously, which everyone knows, that's been doing mods, or sort of been what people acknowledge mods to be for I think maybe about as long as Modloader. I don't remember exactly how far back, but obviously it's been around for years, and has made a lot of possibilities with mods possible. Obviously it has been changed a bit since 1.13, due to not only just how 1.13 itself has been changed, but also just to the dev's own reasoning for sort of changing it up, which is probably a good or bad thing, depending on your experience with it. But yeah, obviously there's too many mods to list, some that probably were even for Modloader that have since carried over to Forge. But even still, a lot of interesting possibilities have come out of modding with Forge. But yeah, it has evolved obviously a lot over time, from core mods to how things are in 1.6 plus, to dimensions, biomes, mobs, tools, armor, other crazy possibilities I can't even remember. So yeah. Redstone obviously led to a lot of interesting potential with creations in the game, obviously, when it was added. And obviously we still have a ton now that are still doing a lot of interesting stuff and blowing people's minds. or just minimalistically achieving things in, say, a small space, like small bases, and still having access to a lot of key features, to otherwise creating really complex systems like almost other games in Minecraft. Obviously, a really good idea that obviously has changed the game in many ways, and yeah, there's been a lot of potential out of it. Otherwise, resource packs obviously have created a lot of interesting texture and sort of combinations of things with using sound and other possibilities that I don't even remember. But obviously the texture pack evolution included with sounds and other things has made resource packs quite useful for maps, as well as just certain things like Datapacks, and also making things more visually appealing, besides its other uses. Obviously it's great to see some coming forward over time, depending on what people have created, depending on the situation it suits also. Redstone there, bench maps there. Liteloader obviously, similar to the other Modloaders, has existed for quite a while, since about 1.5.2, and then sort of didn't really do, hasn't come forward to 1.13, but is still for 1.12.2, but yeah, obviously it was a lightweight option of adding mods, even though it adds mostly things like voxel map, or second hotbar, or certain things like item get, where it's not exactly NEI, JEI-ish full of potential, but it, or possibilities I should say, but still an alternative of sorts for cheating in certain items for things, and so on. Also having the interesting menu design. Obviously it runs alongside Forge, and has pretty much, I think, since as long as it's existed. But yeah, it was obviously an interesting approach to having other mods, making mods or a dev environment more lightweight for developers for coding, as well as making the game a lot more useful for players that just want a few mods, don't want something as big as Forge, or just wants sort of different experiences compared to the more content heavy stuff, and just wanting, say, a simple map mod, or just wanting a second hotbar. You obviously had potential with it here. Otherwise, we had Meddle, or Snaploader, which existed from, I'm pretty sure, 1.9 snapshots up to around about 1.11. I haven't looked into this one too much, and I've only come across it kind of more recently when looking at things like Intermediary, made by Fiber Optic, and looking into areas of that. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting types of mods here. Again, it's for 1.9 and up to 1.11 snapshots. So as far as I remember, I don't think there has been snapshot modding commonly. More so, at least it was more so a dev thing, preparing alongside Forge, or maybe Modloader, or even maybe Liteloader, compared to sort of public use of snapshot mods like we do with Fabric commonly now. But yeah, it had a lot of interesting stuff. Not too many, but still a lot of interesting ideas coming out of it. I don't know its full potential really, since I've only kind of covered it a bit, and I'm kind of trying to work my way through what possibilities it has. I was almost going to do its own video, but I don't know enough about it yet, compared to Intermediary, where I kind of knew a bit more about it. But yeah, it had a lot of interesting possibilities come out of it. Obviously as a player, and not looked into it as much, I can't talk about it a lot, but yeah, like Intermediary, did a lot of interesting things with modding. So yeah. Otherwise, we've got Rift, which obviously existed around about, I think, 1.13 pre-release 5, at least publicly. I don't know of anything prior to that, but yeah, obviously it allowed for modding potential on a lightweight scale similar to Modloader, but allowed for more asset-specific stuff, so a lot more content in terms of things like just your hotbars and your mini-maps, you had obviously a lot of things added in, certain tools and magic and a bunch of other potential things. So it was quite interesting for only being around for 1.13 to 1.13.2 for particular reasons that I'm not going to go into here. But I would assume it had sort of expanded upon what Liteloader was sort of capable of from certain means from, I think, pre-release 5 of 1.13 and then up to 1.13.2. So yeah, obviously it only existed for a time. You've got Fabric, which obviously has been around since 18W49A publicly, but has been around for longer than that. If you check certain things like the sort of forums, wikis here that try to cover it as best as possible, or otherwise I guess there was sort of developer interviews as well, which again I'll link that in the description if you're curious. Yeah, obviously certain things have come out of this with a lot of interesting content. Obviously having stuff supported on snapshots has been nice, besides the lightweight modding experience, but obviously sort of not as much on the performance side for players, and also an interesting environment for developers, especially I think similar to Rift, using things alongside Datapacks has also been an interesting sort of experience to consider. Obviously Fabric's now a year old, which is quite interesting to see how it's been around for so long and done quite a lot, depending on what mods you've obviously experienced or if you've actually developed for the Modloader. Otherwise, if we take things a different direction, you've got Datapacks as other community creations that have been quite interesting, similar to one-block commands and Redstone, or adventure maps and resource packs, having it where I've seen things like dungeons, to portals, to machine guns, apparently. A ton of different interesting things come out of these, and obviously you've got mod-like experiences with Datapacks that are like a separate dimension, tools and armor, certain changes to the game in other ways, from uncrafting to boss bars being visible, calculators, simple changes of blocks like a wireless redstone lamp, to elevators, other recipes of sorts, just tons and tons of possibilities that are still quite interesting to see today. But yeah, tweaking furnaces, applying recipes to other blocks, and so on. Otherwise though, I'd say that's probably everything. But yeah, thanks so much for watching on this sort of look at community creations. Obviously I didn't cover, say, every Modloader that's probably out there, or possibly every type of community creation type approach, but obviously there has been a lot of things over the years that have been quite interesting to see from the community on the vanilla and modded side, and certain aspects over time that has sort of made the game itself a more interesting experience, besides what it typically has with just updates over time. Well, interesting. Obviously the community creations do add a lot of extra possibilities to the game. Otherwise though, thanks so much for watching, and goodbye.